All right, welcome to Halitics. So excited to be with you today. It is a Monday. Had a great weekend and really delayed to have Carlos on live. Carlos, this is great. Maybe we'll get some calls and you can talk to some of the listeners and viewers directly.
Oh, that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. That's the hope out here. How you doing, Hal?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. Thank you. I hope you had a good weekend also.
I did. Had fun. Went out to DC for a little bit. Yeah, really had some family stuff that went on Saturday too. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
That's great. And, in terms of the weekend, I am still excited about Mamdani. I mean, how did you react to that win? Do you see it as a win for progressives, leftists, whatever term you want to use?
Yeah, I do see it as a win. I think this is a win. I think it is a shot in the arm for the stay within the Democratic Party fight. People who think that you can change the Democratic Party within itself. I definitely think that this is like their moment. And I say, hey, have it, do your thing. Let's see how it goes.
That's interesting because I honestly don't see it that way. I'm glad Mamdani won. I really am, and I would vote for him.
Of
But
course.
it seems like the party has completely coalesced against him. I mean, doesn't their reaction suggest at least the party, the establishment in the party has to be utterly defeated because they're not going to embrace a democratic socialist.
No, not at all. I think what's going to be weird to see is going to be the split between the people who are just like, hey, vote blue. It's always like vote blue no matter who until it is someone who's on the left. And it's like, well, all right, cool. Let's not vote blue all the time. But I do want to see what's going to happen because like I see the kind of I hate calling them moderate, like the conservative side of the Democratic Party, the corporate side of the Democratic Party coming out against him, but also not pushing anyone else either. So I wonder if it's going to be one of those things of like, they're just going to sit back, allow him to get in, but then it's going to be this kind of like, okay, we're just going to push him to the as far right as we can, or just make it so he can't govern at all.
There's a lot of concern, I think, among the quote moderates, corporatists, the Zionists, that Mamdani's really unstoppable at this point, and they may be trying to figure out ways to, I guess, sand off his rougher edges the way they've succeeded with people like AOC, for example. I did read an article in Jewish Insider last week where they went through scenarios where potentially Mamdani could be defeated. They seem to think the most hopeful would be if all the Mamdani opposition united behind Eric Adams. And we're already seeing that happen. We're seeing pressure on Cuomo to drop out. His funders have largely said they're not going to give him the kind of money they did in the first go round, which obviously didn't help him. I mean, he lost badly. So there's this sense that, well, maybe Eric Adams can get the black vote. He is African American after all. Although there's definitely a dissatisfaction, as I understand it, among many black New Yorkers with Adams because of his policing, because situation in terms of affordability. The affordability crisis has hit African Americans as harder than other groups. Cuomo was relatively popular among some black voters and certainly among the most affluent and Jewish voters. And I think they probably will go to Adams, but I don't think that's going to be enough. That's sort of the sense I have.
Yeah, I have that same sense. I think it's going to be also, I think Eric Adams has one thing he can, or one thing working against him too with the black community is going to be during the immigration crisis, which is still kind of going on now, of them busing people to New York City and then them taking black neighborhoods and community spaces and turning those into housing and kicking the black people out. I think that's going to be held against him. Honestly, I think that if the Democratic Party goes the route of trying to rehabilitate Eric Adams, I don't think that's going to work because a lot of people still just do not like Eric Adams just as a person. And Eric Adams is not, to me, there's no redeeming quality of Eric Adams other than just like a TV cartoon villain. And Cuomo,
I mean,
to me,
it's like
Cuomo's
Scooby-Doo, where you have the white villain, right? It's Andrew Cuomo, and you pull off his mask, and then there's Eric Adams underneath. I mean, honestly, it seems like they're very similar, doesn't it? In a lot of ways, the corruption scandals, the kind of smart, you can't believe them, right? They're opening their mouths. They're probably lying. So I think that's the sense, and people don't want that. They want somebody that they can believe in. And I took this picture from the AP just real quick. If you want to join us, it is Halitics, 240-242-5646. Would love to talk to you. If you want to talk to Carlos especially, we'd love to hear from you. I did test the phones, Carlos. They're ringing. I did not take this image of a very, very smiling Mamdani. I think it's election night. I didn't take it just random. You actually see African-American faces in the picture taking the selfie, and they look very happy too. And I bring that up because the idea that he doesn't appeal to black voters is just not true. He actually did better, especially in mixed communities, especially among the more middle class or working to middle class blacks and whites. That was his meat. I mean, that's where he won. And so we will hear from some African-American commentators who have issues with Mamdani videos. We'll also have a tweet, an tweet or whatever you call it from Fiorella. So there's a lot of skepticism. I understand it. On balance, I prefer at this moment. I choose to be optimistic. Carlos, I hope you and I are both right when we see real potential in this mayor to be, hopefully.
Same here. I think Mamdani he did overall well just with the more educated voters who knew who was on the ballot, what the different candidates stood for. And I think Andrew Cuomo did better with candidates who honestly were just voting based off of name recognition, because who's more famous or I guess infamous than the Cuomo family?
Well, he also did well with really wealthy voters. It's interesting because Cuomo did the best in the almost all white communities and almost all African-American communities. Cuomo did poorly in integrated communities. He did poorly with Asians. That was a surprise. Some people thought Mamdani would not do as well. Now, of course, he is, I believe, Turkish, so I guess you call that Eurasian, whatever, who doesn't really, but apparently, especially among the Chinese community, which was thought to be more Cuomo leaning, they did not support Cuomo. Mamdani did extremely well in Chinatown, especially in Queens Chinatown. I'm not sure about Manhattan Chinatown. Interesting.
Wow, that is interesting. I think, you know what else at one point before we move on to the next thing is, I think it is telling to see who came out to support Cuomo. And one person I just cannot let off the hook is Kristen Gillibrand, who ran for Senate off the basis of Al Franken needs to be removed for sexual misconduct. Also was saying how Cuomo needs to resign because of sexual misconduct. And then I'm supporting Cuomo, and then turned into like Islamophobia when it came to Mamdani winning. This just cannot be made up.
Yeah, it's amazing because they're all phonies. They're hypocrites. They just glom onto an issue that they think voters will respond to without any concern. The political class, they care only about policies that benefit them. That's the bottom line. And that's the way I want working class voters, that's what I want the people who watch this program to care about. I want you to care about how will this politician's policies improve or harm you. And that's the issue for me. From Ari in the chat on Facebook, Scooby-Doo analogy, funny. So he liked the ripping off the face, the mask. We have to talk about Gaza. I have to talk about it. 200 more killed by Israel over the weekend. Death toll now. This is official. We always talk about this, Carlos. I know you've mentioned this before. This is the bare minimum number of confirmed bodies, the cadavers, the corpses. There's many buried under the rubble. There are many people who haven't been counted, and there are people who are dead, but they're not. Their deaths aren't attributed to what Israel has done. So this is the bare minimum. It's now well over 5% of the original population of Gaza. That would be 15, 20 million Americans if it was comparable. So it's just so awful. See, and Carl, a lot of, and I'll just talk personally about my family or people that my family knows were Jewish. My sister was talking to some friends, and they will not vote for Mamdani. They're so afraid, no matter what Israel does, and they'll make excuses for Israel. We'll get into that. That fear, that primal fear, I think they feel that they could be pushed back into the ovens, supersedes everything, regardless of how many crimes Israel commits them. Their co-religionists are the ones committing the genocide now. Those are the Nazis of today, but they can't escape that, I don't know, prison of fear that they could be the victims.
So is it that they feel that if Mamdani wins in New York City, that's going to have an effect on Israel, the country? Because I don't the two things do not go together at all. It's just like when they were asking all the New York candidates where they would travel out the country first. I saw that and like, well, why do we care where you travel out the country? That you don't do federal policy, you don't do international policy. All you do is New York City stuff. And then just to not even have that number is, yes, on the very conservative small scale side, because you even have just people who are dying of starvation who aren't counted in that. And then you have reports coming out that Israel is contaminating the food that is coming through with putting oxy into the flour for bread and stuff to get people hooked on drugs so that they can die faster too. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. In Israel, I mean, they are committing a genocide and they're complicit. Now they're trying to take over a region by basically it's hard to say they're pushing us into a war with Iran when it seems like American politicians were all sold on doing it anyway. So now we're going to war with the Middle East again. Well,
I'm hopeful that the Iran war will not explode. That's sort of a side, I won't say a side issue, but that's an area where Democrats are, I think, pushing Trump to go to war with Iran. Schumer calls him a chicken, right? Didn't he say Trump always chickens out because he was talking? Because they were negotiating at one point with Iran. And now they're saying, oh, he didn't destroy their capabilities. Oh, he talks tough, but he didn't really knock out their nuclear capabilities, which is obviously, again, daring him, right? They're saying, oh, you're a wimp. You got to go. Yeah, finish the job. So, yeah, I mean, the Dems are terrible there. Trump has been worse with Gaza and Palestine, even worse. As hard as it is to be worse than Harris, Biden, where he has delivered the 1-ton bombs. Apparently, he's pressuring Netanyahu to stop. But the only way you stop him is if you take the weapons away, and that's something that Trump will not do.
So I'll push back on that a little bit. I don't think Trump is any worse than Harris or Biden was on this issue. I think it was just a kind of a rhetorical. He's rhetorically worse because Harris, Biden, they'll talk strong about it. Be like, no, we need to make sure that there's peace. Still sending all the same stuff. Yes. Biden kind of reduced some of the size bombs, but you're reducing a size from a 2-ton bomb to a 1-ton bomb. I'm still sending bombs at the end of the day. We're still not sending over aid. We're still continuing to fund. Honestly, and you're right, this genocide stops the moment America says we're done. Then it stops. It
did stop, remember, because Trump stopped it for a couple months. He actually did with his boy Witkoff. They stopped it, and then, I think, I'm not making no excuses for Trump. Trump is awful, but I can't vote for Democrats either unless they're going to renounce this murder, this wholesale murder of an entire group of people. You can see the numbers there: 56,531 Gazans, 200 over the weekend, and Trump there, 6,200 of those 56,000. Biden and Harris too, because she would say, I was in the room. I was working for a ceasefire. We know that was a lie. 50,000 on their blood of people on their ends. I like to see them all frog march to The Hague, honestly, and charged with genocide.
Yeah. I mean, this should be all of them are culpable to go before the ICC to get charged. Even
here's your story. I just want to just real quick, Carlos, because I want to get into and this is definitely pertinent to the issue of if the Democratic Party, which you said, hey, there's like good news for those who feel we can reform the Dems, and maybe there is, maybe this is. I don't want to be too dogmatic one way or another, but you mentioned just how awful the current situation is. This is from the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. It's a killing field. Soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans. And we've seen that hundreds now killed, maybe over 1,000 just waiting for food. And they need food because they're being starved by Israel, which then herds them into these very few places where they're then shot. And I just wanted to highlight, we've talked about this, but I wanted to highlight this because you mentioned Democrats. Chris Van Hollen has been one of the few Dems to really speak out against what Israel is doing. Here's a tweet from him. So do you see Mamdani as kind of not following, but that he and Van Hollen could be like a wedge of pro-peace, anti-genocide Democrats?
I put Mamdani a little above Chris Van Hollen, and I'll say this. Yes, Chris Van Hollen has been one of the most vocal ones against the genocide going on. I don't think he's called it a genocide yet, but he is very vocal against it. But I would say at the same time, he still votes for all of the aid packages to Israel too. So it's like, thank you for saying that, but at a certain point, your words are just words, unless you actually are going to withhold your vote for it and tell your other fellow colleagues or warmongers in the Senate to withhold their vote for it as well. So I think one thing that Mamdani said that was great too is that he was asked if Netanyahu came to New York, would you let him just be free here? And he was like, no, we would arrest him and turn him over to the ICC because that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I wonder if Chris Van Hollen would also say the same thing when Benjamin Netanyahu came to the U.S. Senate or Congress and gave a speech. Did he call for him?
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Carlos. That had sort of slipped my mind what Mamdani said, but that was a really powerful answer. I don't want him to mute that message going into the general at all. Do want to urge viewers, if you haven't yet, please do join us on Facebook. I've got the little GIF there, Join Halitics on Facebook. A lot of good intellectual conversation going on there, mostly not initiated by me, which makes it all the better. And of course, we do want you as well. If I can find where is my subscribe now? There's my subscribe now button. Please do subscribe to Halitics there. You see the bell ring. Love to have more subscribers. We lost a couple, Carlos. I think some people see one topic and then they subscribe. And then I think my honestly, I really believe this is a problem in terms of keeping subscribers, is I'm very critical of Israel. And I think some of the people who might initially be drawn to what we do on Halitics then see the very anti-Israel commentary and they don't want to hear it.
Yep. It is. Israel. It's weird. It's so weird that America, the just population is so sold on being with Israel, because to me, it just doesn't. They're not a state. We don't get anything from them. Like it's legit like a child, not even a child. It's honestly just like we were told, hey, you support these people over here. No reason at all that we support them and what they're doing. And honestly, and I think this also goes to a lack of education within America and within the country, just when it comes to foreign foreign relations and things like that. I think a lot of people don't even think of Israel as having better social services than we have in this country, and we pay them to have these social services.
Yeah, no question about that. And our politicians are so bought and paid for as well by the Israeli government. So or it's lobbyists here, right, like AIPAC and others. I was thinking about this too. I think we have Holocaust. I believe I don't think this happened when I was in school, but I'm a lot older than you. But we apparently have Holocaust education in this country, and that's fine. I think it should be discussed. I don't know that, and I don't know, but my fear is that we spend more time focusing on the Holocaust than we do on slavery and on Jim Crow, because those are American crimes. Those are what Americans did to other Americans, and that needs to be highlighted. I was looking at a book. I had seen this before, but I think it was called, it's the autobiography of a slave girl. It was a woman who escaped slavery, and she wrote what it was like. And it's incredibly powerful. I don't know if that's read in schools. I think the woman's name is Harriet Jacobs. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but she describes it. And I didn't read the whole thing, but I started looking through this last night. And I really think those are the kind of books people need to read in this country, is that we owned people. And this was a privileged girl at first living with her parents. They were, I guess you'd call them talented 10th, and then everything is pulled away from her, and she's, sold to a cruel master who rapes her and beats her. And it's true. I mean, it's just, she told her life story, and she was able to even escape. Wonderful for her, obviously, but horrible what she had to go through. But I don't think we talk about that. We spend a lot of time focusing on what happened in Germany, and it was horrible. But
it's horrible. Yeah.
We need to understand inhumanity crosses racial lines, crosses religious lines, crosses every line. And we are all capable of doing horrible things to each other.
You're right. And then and it's even weird too, because we are taught in school so much about the Holocaust, but then it is selectively left out about how a lot of the ways Hitler did the Holocaust, he got from how America was with Jim Crow and slavery. Of like, how you all are segregating people and having your own apartheid state. We're doing that here as well. And I think that America does not want to teach that side of it, because then it makes people have to think back to, oh, wow, we are actually the reason that a lot of these things happen, and look how we treat our own people. And it's sad too, because when you really look, more people have sympathy for people, what happened in the Holocaust, than they do for Black Americans, what happened during, even if you don't go far back as slavery, what happened just during Jim Crow. Like people have
which continued, for 15, 20 years at least after the Holocaust was over. So you're absolutely right on that, Carlos. And also the other thing that I read, Corey Robin, who is Jewish, was writing about this, is that, and this I think explains also what I was saying about friends of my family who just can't, or relations, even though they're incredibly privileged, they live extraordinarily better lives than most people. They can't see past them. They can only see themselves ultimately as potential victims. And by the way, that view is very self-serving, right? I mean, you may feel bad about, you may feel worried, it causes anxiety, but it also allows you to do whatever the hell you want without any kind of guilt. Well, I'm the victim. I get to do whatever I want. And sometimes I think victims do get a sort of a pass. Like people hate this, but I do give Hamas not a full pass for what they did on October 7th, but I understand they're the oppressed group. It's like Nat Turner. I think he did kill some children, and maybe there were some, I know he didn't go after the Quakers, right? There were Quaker families that he didn't attack. With very brief slave uprising, I guess, in the 1830s in North Carolina, and several, dozen, I think, whites were killed, and maybe some of them really were innocent, if you want to use that term. But you give him a pass because his group was always being killed and raped and just enslaved. So of course, people hate to hear me say that. Well, I'll give a little bit of a pass to Hamas for what happened on October 7th. But, if you're a privileged Jewish person, I don't give you a pass, but it's very self-serving because you get to say, hey, I'm the victim. Look what happened. They'll shove us in the ovens. And we have to fight that. I think we have to fight that tendency in people.
You're right. We have to fight that. And then even going back to a point that you made earlier, just talking about the whole bombing in Iran. One thing that has also really been horrible too is seeing how many of the Democrats, because we always knew Republicans were going to do this, but kind of voted against the impeachment articles for Trump, and because their main point was not that he shouldn't have done this. Their main point is, oh, we just wanted to be the one to do it instead of the president. And I give credit to Thomas Massie even for being the only Republican to stand up and say, no, this was wrong. He does not have this authority. And this is, I don't know if he voted for the impeachment, but I know he voted for the War Powers resolution too.
He did, absolutely, and really good for him for doing that. Marjorie Taylor Greene has said some good things, but like Chris Van Hollen, she hasn't voted the way she should. And for example, she did not vote for the War Powers resolution either, although I think there's pressure on her to do that. So here's the question. We asked this last week. You kind of alluded to this. You said that it was a good week for those who believe it's possible to reform and reclaim the Democratic Party. Is that your own personal view at this point?
Yeah, I think it shows that you can. I think it shows that the leftists can win elections within the Democratic Party. Now, does it show that we are allowed to govern once we win? No. Does it show that we're allowed to win the general election because there's support by the establishment of the party? No. But it does show that if enough people come together, they can overpower the establishment within a primary to a point, because New York City is also it's a test subject because it is a more what people would think of as a more progressive area than like a full-on state or other like a Maryland or Massachusetts. They see it as a more progressive place in general.
Yeah, I'm not sure I hear that. I don't know if I agree with that. I think in different ways. New York is a city to a large degree of neighborhoods. And there's a lot of variability within those neighborhoods. You and I have discussed this. African Americans aren't necessarily that progressive. It depends, just like all groups. So
the older you are, the more conservative
it's a young city. It's a young city. It's an educated city. And it's a city where people are struggling economically. And I think that kind of explains to a degree the vote. You said, yeah, there's an opportunity to reform here. Fiorella Isabel, very outspoken, hard leftist, disagrees. Here's what she says about Mamdani. If a politician has this guy's endorsement, meaning Chuck Schumer, he's a fraud. Some of you are, well, she doesn't mince words, are one of the most gullible and moronic people I've seen on the app, still hoping some politician from the genocidal Democratic Party comes to save you, thinking voting in a fascist state is a solution. So I have some thoughts, but I want yours in reaction to her.
I get her point. I definitely do. I see it as, I get her point, but I have a little hesitation to it because I remember back with India Walton, who ran for mayor of Buffalo. She won the primary, got in after she won the primary, then started getting all the conservative corporate Democrats endorsements, and then went on to lose because the former mayor came and ran a write-in campaign. It was backed by donors and stuff like that. I don't think voting for Mamdani he's a fraud. You need to prove to me first that you are a fraud before I call you one. I definitely think when he gets in there, he should be held accountable for everything he ran on, to say, hey, look, I don't care how you do it, but you have to get it done. I do think that voting just for Democrats isn't a good option. I also think that Mamdani is the only option, the only kind of somewhat like the only leftist option in the race at this point. So I've always said if you vote for whoever is the most left person within an election and then just hold them accountable or just organize what you're doing around him. But I'm not going to say that voting for him is a horrible thing to do.
I'm with you there 100%, Carlos. Just want to also shout out to Music in the chat. He says, what's up, Carlos?
Oh, what's
So
up?
nice to see you getting a nice greeting, a shout out there. You know, I mentioned this tweet last week. I just want to reiterate, Schumer doesn't actually endorse Mamdani here. She says if he gets this guy's endorsement, Schumer doesn't say vote for Mamdani. I also think we should not let corporate corrupt Democrats push us in any particular direction. I mean, if they really embrace somebody, then obviously that's something to be really afraid of. But I don't want to give them that power. I'll make my own decisions if I think somebody's a good candidate. I think that it's a shrewd, canny move by Schumer to embrace somebody who in the city, the largest city in the state, largest city in the country, has obviously been able to appeal to his constituents. He'd be pretty stupid not to throw out at least a bone to Mamdani. So right. I'm not going to let Chuck Schumer decide for me if I like a candidate or not. It seems pretty clear the Democratic establishment doesn't like Mamdani. They would have preferred he lose. And that doesn't decide me either because, you know, they can be critical. They're critical of AOC, right? Didn't Pelosi this year, she promoted a dead man, literally dead, to take the spot that AOC wanted and would have been much better to occupy. So I'm not going to, you know, the fact that Pelosi hates AOC doesn't mean I suddenly like AOC. I'm not going to let them decide for me. I think Mamdani has good instincts. I'm hoping he stays to the left. We'll play some clips in a moment, but did you have anything more to add to any of that?
Yeah. I also think we need to also look at it as these corporatist establishment Democrats only came out in any rhetorical sense of support after he won the primary. They were like, we're not going to stick behind you beforehand. We're going to show up. Okay, cool. I mean, he won. You know, he ran a good campaign. Shout out to him. And Cuomo kind of said the same thing, too. Like, yeah, he won. Okay. Cool. I guess we're going with it, I guess.
Have you heard any news? My sense is that Cuomo still hasn't decided whether he's going to run.
Oh, no, he's going to be on the ballot. He said he's staying on the ballot, that he's not going to take his name off. He's just said he doesn't know if he's going to run a campaign or not. I don't think he's going to run a campaign, but honestly, and I was reading some stuff back and forth on Facebook about this too. I don't know which side I come down on, or like, I don't know if I believe Cuomo staying on the ballot helps Mamdani because it takes away support from Eric Adams, or is Cuomo staying on the ballot because it gives another option for donors to say, look, let's just throw our money back behind Cuomo, or I don't know what's the positive or negative from him staying on the ballot or not.
I think it's definitely a positive, I have to say, just because a few voters will vote for Cuomo, and if he's not campaigning, he isn't going to win. So, and it's not ranked choice. If it was ranked choice, then I would feel differently. But it's just the plurality winner. So I think that has to be good because no one who would vote for Mamdani if Cuomo wasn't on the ballot will now vote for Cuomo. But there will be some Adams voters who will vote for Cuomo. Also, apparently the Republican Sliwa, who is a guardian angel, real big shot Law and Order type guy, big time Law and Order guy, he says he's prepared to run with for Adams, in a joint ticket with Adams, which probably helps Adams a little bit. But this, by the way, this is from, I wanted to show, this thumbnail is from Sabby Sabs. We'll get to her. Sometimes I really like Sabby, sometimes I don't. I just want to say she's pretty critical of Adams in this video, but not of Adams. She's critical of Zohran in this video. But look at that thumbnail. Could she have come up with a worse, the way she juxtaposed, he's got the smile, I mean, I don't know. To me, this is she's saying you can't possibly vote for the old guy, the old bald guy. Or am I wrong? Am I missing something here with that?
No, you're right.
Thumbnail?
You can't. And that's one of those things. It's look, I'd prefer you don't even just come out to vote if you're going to vote for Eric Adams. You can't support this man. Just the crazy stuff he says, the crazy ways he acts. I mean, people still aren't convinced he even lives in New York City. So,
but I'm just saying with that picture, the way she has the photos is just, I mean, well, he's a young guy. I mean, he's got the hair. And Eric he looks like a sourpuss. He's like an old,
angry old man.
Paul. He's been And this is, but it's, I think how a lot of people look at this, they're going to say, we need a change. We need to move on from the old generations that have done so much harm.
Yeah. The old depressing, evil side of New York is dead. It's time for like a new, young, fresh, like it's time for change out here.
Yeah, although he looks a little slick with the Pepsodent smile, I have to say. There's a little bit of the... I did that with one of my thumbnails last week. I had a picture of Obama with I put a little gleam, gleam in his tooth, like, because he could do no wrong. But again, people, I think we're moving on from that generation. Let's play the clip from Sabby. I wanted your take on this.
It says here, Jane Fonda, again, she did donate money to Zohran Mamdani. As campaign finance records show, she donated $1,000 to a super PAC boosting his mayor run. But that was dwarfed by a $100,000 contribution from Fahim Zaman. It was the biggest donation by far to New Yorkers for lower costs, making up nearly half of the $210,000 the pro-Mamdani super PAC has reported raising so far. So I have to ask everybody a question, and I'm being sincere here. Look, either you're not for super PACs or you're for it. Because one of the big reasons why I supported, like in the past, like I voted for Bernie Sanders and I supported like members of the squad was because they weren't taking this money. They weren't taking super PAC money. They weren't taking like, corporate funds. Like it was grassroots campaigns.
All right. So she's got some real issues with Zohran Mamdani. What is your thought on that, though, issue of the super PAC money?
I would love to know and I think she gets to it later on within the clip, who the Fahim Zaman is. I think he's like is he like a Jeffrey Sachs person? He works with some like high up money people, but
I think she said he was tied to, I can't remember, there was someone.
It's not the Ackmans, is it?
It wasn't Ackman. It was some billionaire. I don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have that.
Yeah, that part gives me a little hesitation, but I don't want it to be, because we also when you look at campaign finance records of people giving to Bernie Sanders, it would say Amazon. It would say like United Healthcare.
You can see, she gets that a little bit wrong. First of all, he can't control super PACs. Super PACs really are independent. Now, I get the argument, which is, hey, if the super PAC is really there for you and you tell them to do something, they won't do it. I do understand that. I don't love rich people contributing, but Mamdani can't stop it. And I also am willing to believe there are wealthy New Yorkers who actually really do want a change and are willing to accept higher taxes and some limits on Wall Street. So I don't love.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that, because I remember as I think it was the Breakfast Club or somebody was talking about Mamdani's policies. The corporate tax rate he wants to raise, that's a state thing. He can't do it only in New York. So this could be seen as like, hey, rich people who are like, you know what, I'm fine with free buses. I don't like Cuomo. I don't like Adams. Cool, we'll go with you. And we know certain things you'll need the state to push. We'll fight you on that, and we'll deal with this for certain things too. Because I think this could be both. He's good for working class people, but a lot of the things probably the wealthy people want are more in the like minute details of policies that they may say, hey, we can still benefit off of this in some kind of way. And I was listening to when Kashama Sawant was talking about this, she was talking about how she didn't care for how Zohran was saying that it's certain that some of his policies also benefit the wealthy people too. That this could be wealthy people saying, well, this actually could benefit me a little bit here and there, which I say, hey, get your voters how you get your voters, as long as the policies still stay the same.
That's a really good point. I agree with that. You want to win. And to me, I want him to win by doing outreach to disaffected communities, to Black communities, to brown communities, which he won. He did well with Latinos. Yeah. He did well with Asians, but he definitely could do better, even though he didn't do badly, but he could do better with African American voters. I think he needs to do that with the poorest voters. So that's where I want him to go. I don't want him reaching out to affluent voters. But the argument that he made, and see, this is what you're talking about and I don't have the clip, and I thought about it. I watched this clip actually, and I was taken by it when Shama Sawant was on with Brianna Joy Gray. And Sawant said that Mamdani is wrong to suggest that billionaires will benefit from his policy. She said, no, they won't, because, a rent freeze hurts private equity. A rent freeze hurts the billionaire apartment building owners like Trump, right? Trump's a huge landlord, so he's a perfect example of somebody that it could hurt. Yeah. But I thought Brianna Joy Gray had the better argument, which was, well, it's true that maybe it will reduce their revenues, but they'll be living in a city where there are fewer homeless people, where there's less crime, there's less trash, and that has value too. So I think that's where that was my sense of what Mamdani was arguing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think people of the mindset of Shama Sawant hers is more of like a mindset thing. She wants people to never say things will benefit the wealthy people because we don't want any type of sympathy for the wealthy people ever. And I think Brianna's coming from the fact of like, you're going to have some non-wealthy people. Unfortunately, you have some working class people who act as defenders of the wealthy establishment class who are like, they need to hear that, oh, this isn't going to hurt a billionaire, to make them feel comfortable to vote for what benefits them instead. So no, I agree with you on that part.
Here's what, just real quick. So the concern that, and I don't say it's a totally fake concern or false or wrong. They have a right. There is concern. I think Mamdani is reaching out to the top echelons in New York, and I don't love that. But it is before the election, and as long as his policies remain good, then fine. But the issue of super PACs, I think, again, is a little unfair to him because, you and I could start a super PAC and there's nothing Zohran Mamdani could do about it. We could go raise money and we could, run ads for him, and, he can't stop it. You can see they can't coordinate when they try. When you try, there are fines. There's all sorts of penalties. So, that said, again, if a Mamdani had said, I don't want super PACs spending money on me, period, maybe they would have listened. On the other hand, I think you'd be pretty stupid to say that. Why would you say that? If these people want to help me win, I'm all for it. So I don't fully share that concern. Now, I want to get into this other issue that came up over the weekend, and this got a lot of criticism again from Sabby. She's savvy, but her name is Sabby, Sabrina Salvati. So it's all these. Zohran pledges to combat bigotry if elected New York City mayor after MAGA spirals into ugly Islamophobia. So that's from the English newspaper yesterday. And I think it's a fair headline, right? I mean, there's no question. There's a ton of Islamophobia. That's the issue. It's not anti-Semitism. I want to be very, very clear. My view, anti-Semitism is not a problem. And I had mixed feelings at best towards Zohran for what he said. But I want to play the clip. The folks at RBN did not like this. I think you've heard it, but let's play it for you and for the listeners and viewers and see what they think.
I just saw that video today. So it was after he won that he made this announcement.
So let's take a look at it.
And I know that Jewish New Yorkers, like Jewish Americans, are fearful in this moment of anti-Semitism. They're fearful, especially after the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado. They're fearful also in conversations that I have heard myself about life in this city. I spoke to a Jewish man in Williamsburg not too many weeks ago who told me about the fact that he now locks the door that he used to close, that he used to keep open for years because of a fear of who may come in. I spoke to a friend of mine after October 7th who told me about going to his synagogue for Shabbat services and hearing the door open behind him and turning around with a tremor going up his back, not knowing who was walking in and what they wished for them. And ultimately, it's through the conversations I've had with Jewish New Yorkers that I have developed a proposal for the Department of Community Safety that would include an 800% increase in funding for hate crime prevention programs. Because ultimately, we cannot simply say that anti-Semitism has no home in this city or no place in this country. We have to do more than talk about it. We have to tackle it. And that's what we will do through this funding and through this commitment. We will root out bigotry across the 5 boroughs.
All right. Some mixed reaction to that, Carlos, from the panel. Your thoughts?
I'm not against it. I mean, I think that there's anti-Semitism, there's Islamophobia. I think a lot of Islamophobia is growing at a much faster rate than anti-Semitism is. But I guess as a Black person too, I have my first reaction of kind of like, to me, yes, we need to prevent Islamophobia. We need to prevent anti-Semitism. But everything he said about how like, oh, people are scared when the church door opens. I mean, Black people, we've been feeling that with all the church shootings that we've had, and you don't hear people talking about combating our hate crimes against us. You don't hear, like, when there was the anti-Asian hate bill, you didn't see a big push around anti-Black hate bill like to come up either. So as a Black American, it kind of feels like anytime another minority group, something happens to them, there's a push to actually like stop it. Whenever something happens to Black people, it's a thing of like, hey, something always happens to y'all. It'll be fine. So I get why he has to do it, because of optics, because of people going to label him as he doesn't like Jewish people. He's anti-Semitic just because he's Muslim. Or just because he looks Muslim too, because some people aren't even Muslim, they just look Muslim, and they're going to automatically put that on you as well. I think he's doing what he has to do. I am just going to be looking out to make sure none of his kind of like talking about anti-Semitism goes to also descale his rhetoric when it comes to being anti-Zionist as well. And I think that there needs to be an education campaign when it comes to anti-Semitism to also let people know that Arab people are Semitic in themselves too. So it is not just Jewish people who are considered Semitic.
So, Carlos, I see it pretty much the exact same way you do. Slightly different nuances. I did not like that he centered Jewish fear. I just don't like that. I think a lot of that fear is irrational. I posted this on my Facebook page. This is not anti-Semitic. This was, I got an email from a synagogue in our area where they talked about a sign that they have where we support Israel in the struggle against, I don't know, whatever, for survival. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't be supporting Israel. It's wrong to support Israel at this point. And then I got this email. Let me just see if I can show everyone what it says, because now you can't read, but I respond. This is the actual email I received. And you can read it. Dear so-and-so, what should have been a peaceful transition into Shabbat was instead met with an act of hate. So they call it anti-Semitic vandalism, but all that was put on the sign was the word genocide. No one said kill the Jews, Hitler was right. Something like that, a swastika. I say, okay, yeah, I get it. That's anti-Semitic. Genocide's not. You have a sign that says, I'm not saying, it is defacement, it's vandalism. If you want to charge them with that, go ahead. But the fact is, you're waving in people's faces your support for a country that is committing genocide, and they are simply saying genocide. That is not anti-Semitic. And I think that, that's why I don't buy the claims over and over that there's this increase in anti-Semitism, because what I see called anti-Semitism, is not. I'm not saying I don't believe it is. It isn't. That's not anti-Semitic, period, end of story. So I didn't like Mamdani centering the fear that people may have, but they do. But you're right. He's got to win. There's a lot of Jews who vote in New York City. He wants some of their votes. He doesn't want to wave it in their face. I didn't love it. I get why the RBN panel was mixed on it. On the other hand, he said the money would be for anti-hate crime education and enforcement. And as long as there's no earmarking of that money targeting alleged anti-Semitic acts, but it includes Islamophobia, includes crimes against African Americans based on race, then again, I'm like you. I'm okay with it, especially the education aspect of it. But that's a big if. The money has to be across the board, not just for Jews. A, and B. I don't like centering and what I consider to be an irrational fear.
No, you're right. And it also, I mean, some of his rhetoric also kind of bolsters up people's reason to say that they should be in fear too. But even to the email that you just brought up, I am. It's sad that in this country we are conflating being Zionist with also being like Semitic at the same time. Where synagogue saying we support Israel basically no matter what's happening, that's not in favor of Jewish people. That's not keeping Jewish people safe. That has nothing to do with Jewish people. That's just saying we support a government and how they're doing X, Y, and Z. And it's even like when Ted Cruz had the conversation with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson, when Ted Cruz said, "Oh, it's in the Bible that you're supposed to support Israel no matter what," he was like, "Well, what do you mean? Like the country, like the government of Israel?" And Ted Cruz couldn't really say anything because it's like, so what do you say? Because it is a government. So if the government just starts killing random people, do you just support them no matter what? No, you call them out and say, this government is not standing up for its values, blah, 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 blah. We need to make sure that the Jewish people who live there are safe. Point blank, period.
Well, the Jewish people, but everyone who lives there, everyone who lives in their region needs to be safe and secure. So this brings up a question I want to ask your thoughts on, because I really, seriously, I don't want to make you blush or anything, but I really respect your opinion. It means something to me. It means a lot to me. So I've been criticized by some for not showing enough concern or empathy for the Israelis who have been, there were Israelis who were killed when Iran sent those missiles over. And I have sympathy for them. I really do. I may not have talked about it, but it's hard for me to have a lot of sympathy because so many Israelis support Netanyahu's murderous militaristic adventures, including certainly against Gaza and the West Bank, but also in Lebanon, also destroying Syria, also then attacking Iran. So I'm like, at what point do you separate the civilian victim from the government that they either tacitly or vocally support?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as I have sympathy for the people who are just living their day-to-day lives and they're not doing anything but just existing. And then but my criticism goes towards their own government for basically putting them in this situation that they're in of being bombed, of being threatened by Iran, but only because your government chooses to encroach on them, chooses to try to have regime change. And it's kind of like in our country, when we really don't have many like terrorists who come over to America to cause things just by the way our military is situated and stuff like that. But like when people come over to like America to do things, I feel horrible for the American citizens who are affected, but I also look at our government and say, why are we doing things to basically make us vulnerable as a society? Why is our government setting up a situation to where they're basically using our lives as just like cannon fodder? And I think that's the problem when it comes to Israeli citizens. It's like, I feel bad for you, and you should be blaming your own government for why they're putting you in this situation. Well,
and also surveys have shown that the Israelis do not have empathy for the Palestinian people. They are not upset about the genocide. They do not view this as obviously there are going to be a few, but the majority are like, yeah, well, they shouldn't have attacked us on October 7 without any real, willingness to engage in the real history or the oppression and persecution that Israel has visited on Palestinians. And I would just add, even if somehow this were just a totally unprovoked attack, It still wouldn't justify what Israel's doing. That still wouldn't make it okay to kill innocent women and children in Gaza. It still would be completely wrong. And it's not the same as Iran responding. I mean, Iran was continued to be bombed by Israel when it was sending its missiles back at Israel. That's not the case with Israel and its war on the Gazan people. Hamas poses zero danger to Israel at this point. So there are a lot of distinctions, and the Israeli people and Israel itself and the government all come out looking worse, no matter how you do those comparisons.
You're right. And before we move on, you even look in history too, Israel's government propped up Hamas. They're the ones who propped up Hamas because they wanted a quote unquote like villain to fight against, to say, oh, we need to justify doing genocide. So let's get the more aggressive one. Let's make you win. And the Palestinian Authority, let's weaken you all, which are the more peacefuler ones.
It's true. Yeah, that's the history. All right, here we are. Zohran Mamdani's Coalition of the In-Between. This came out this morning. I was very interested in this article, and Nia Prater I guess she does the interview here. It's not of, she doesn't provide the source of the information, but it's very interesting. And basically what the analysis shows is what we've been talking about. This guy, Mamdani, won working class, he won middle class voters. He did not win African-American voters, but he did better than many expected. I guess my question, where do we go with this? Where do we take that, Carlos?
I think that it shows that what Mamdani needs to do from now until November is get more in touch with Black communities. I think that you're going to have to go to like the grassroots side of the Black communities. Unfortunately, you can't go to the establishment Black kind of gatekeepers of our communities because a lot of them are bought and paid for. You can't go to your Al Sharptons, your Clyburns, your insert random Black pastor who only just cares about having connections to whoever is the most powerful. You got to go to the grassroots organizations doing mutual aid, the people doing like political education, the people who are actually like doing like neighborhood assistance and things like that. Go into these lower income areas and tell people how your policies are actually going to help them. Because I think a lot of times too is that some of the support that Mamdani didn't get wasn't necessarily people saying we don't agree with what you're going to do. It was that not having any outreach in their community. So we never heard of you. So we're just voting for who we know at that point.
Yeah, I think your point there about some of the gatekeepers, and Savvy talks about this. Savvy talks about this. I don't know why I do that. I know it's Savvy. I watch her show all the time. She talks about the gatekeepers, right? She talks about the Clyburns. She's very interesting in that because she has her concerns about Mamdani, but she also recognizes that there are, this filter that does what it can to keep a real progressive message from some of the people in the neighborhoods. It's very worrisome. This is noted. Cuomo only won housing developments and senior housing buildings. So the older folks voted for him. This is not the wealthy, but below the wealthy, everyone below wealthy, and only won housing developments and senior housing buildings. I think that's fascinating. I want to see him go to those really poor neighborhoods, Carlos. I really do. I want to see him figure out where he can go, whether it's community centers. I got to believe there are some churches where he would be welcome. I remember when Obama won in 2008, and I said right after he won, this was even before he was inaugurated, he needs to go to those areas that he won, like Indiana, Iowa, the red states that he won, and talk about what he wants to do and how he needs their help to bring good jobs back to this country, how he needs their help to make the country more affordable, to make healthcare a reality. And I think that's what Mamdani needs to do. His message needs to be, these are the concrete ways I'm going to make life better for you.
Yeah, so people can actually see it. And actually, I have a question for you, Hal, too, because like you said to me, I'll say it back to you too. Your opinion, your thoughts on different matters are just valuable to me. So I want to know, do you see it in other communities that you've worked in, that the same level of gatekeeping that I will say us as Black people we have from our leaders? Because I can't think of who is like a Jewish or a white person's version of like an Al Sharpton or Clyde Burns and stuff. I can't think of these like gatekeepers. So
I don't think and I don't know for sure, like, because I'm not in the African American communities, just from my observations, which are pretty thin. I don't think, there's so many white people. We're so many different religions. I think, a majority of African Americans may be Baptist. And if they're not, certainly there's a very strong tradition in the church. So you have a certain concentration of pastors who have a lot of influence. But within the white community, you have subgroups. So, for example, the Orthodox Jewish community, yes, the rabbis absolutely act as gatekeepers. They absolutely tell their, I don't know what the people who go to their to their synagogues. What do you call them? I don't know. The members of their synagogues. They tell them you should vote for. They said vote for Cuomo because they didn't like Cuomo. This was something I read. A lot of Orthodox Jews didn't like Cuomo. They greatly prefer Adams, and their rabbi said, no, you got to vote for Cuomo in the primary. You can vote for Adams in general, but we got to stop this guy. We got to stop the Muslim first. So yes, there are gatekeepers in these communities, but I think as a whole, there may be, and I don't want to be stereotyping, but based on my observation, I do think that sadly, the African American community as a whole is more ill-served by some of its self-appointed leadership. Yeah, unfortunately.
No, you're right. About that. And I didn't know that the rabbis hold as much power within the Jewish communities too. And a lot of our self-appointed misleadership class that we have in Black communities come from either people's name recognition from the civil rights era, or it also moves into just, I think, respectability of just older people that a lot of people feel like I just can't question. Like, it's even crazy hearing Maxine Waters and also Elizabeth Holmes Norton is running for re-election at like 88 years old.
Eleanor Holmes Norton is 88, Carlos. Yes, I mean, do we not have enough like practically 90 plus year old? They're all so old. Please just get out. Don't you have something? Go to your home or something. I don't mean to be obnoxious, but her and what's her name had to be carried out feet first from California. Feinstein, Pelosi,
Steny Hoyer.
Clyburn is 80, I believe. Is he 80?
I think so.
I think he is. 80. Hoyer is just about 80. Yeah, I mean, Schumer. Look at Schumer. He's been around forever.
Steny Hoyer is 86 years old right now.
I didn't know he was that old.
Yeah.
He's not running though, right? He's stepping down? Or is he?
No one knows. No one knows so far. So we can have another just old people after old people after old people. And I'm like, you know what? And I try to say this just to make older people feel better. Like, if y'all want to impart your wisdom on people, I mean, the older politicians really don't care for your wisdom on things because you're kind of just, honestly, we can just take corporate talking points and then replace you with it. But leave office. There's nothing else for you to do. At this point, go spend time with your grandchildren or great grandchildren. At this point, I think this is like part of it. I think it should be examined and investigated on what part people's children and grandchildren play in them staying in office.
Jim Clyburn is 84 years old. I didn't know he was that old. Did you know he was that? I did not know that.
I knew he was in his 80s. I thought it was like 80, but I didn't know it was 84.
And these are the most powerful people in the party too. Yes. These aren't like,
yeah. Do you think at a certain point it's them, or do you think at a certain point it's their children and grandchildren? Because to me, it wasn't Dianne Feinstein who was choosing to stay in office. It was her family who was choosing to keep her in office. What do you say for the other ones?
I don't
Because
know.
like
Clyburn's still pretty active, though. I think he's making those calls. I mean, you see him doing the ads. He's out there yelling at "Get off of my lawn." You remember I showed you that video? So
he said, if you want to work with me, listen to what I want you to do.
Yeah,
and do what
get
I
off of my stuff. Please, come on. But anyway.
It's the most depressing thing I've ever seen. We are run by a bunch of 80 and 90-year-olds who could care less about what happens in the world.
They've got theirs.
Yeah.
This was an interesting take, and maybe we've done our hour, so we've done that. But who was I thinking of? It was something about the Democrats that just that there's such a huge gulf too. It's part of it is the corruption, but part of it I think it's just it's generational, and they just aren't. They don't want to give up. They're holding on like grim death. It's interesting that the Republicans you don't see as big a problem there. I don't know why. They seem to take younger leaders. Some of their most prominent folks are, in their 40s, 50s. They're not these old timers. This is what I was going to say about what I think one other reason maybe, and I mentioned religion as an issue with the gatekeepers. Catholics are really diverse. There's a lot of Catholics. I think there are some African American Catholics. There's a lot of white Catholics, and priests, man, they're all over the map. I mean, some are lefty, some are center, some are right. They don't get like the marching orders that I think you see from some of these other religious groups. The rabbis I mentioned, especially the Orthodox, they are just all in for Israel, for the hard right in Israel. That's it. They all read from pretty much the same playbook. But these priests, man, they're everywhere. You get from socialist to you get the Opus Dei, like the Scalia types. So I think that also, though, prevents there from being gatekeeping, and why you might see in Italian neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, and Latino neighborhoods.
Yeah,
you get you don't have the sheepdogging.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that. And even on the point about age too with the Republicans, I think it's the base. I honestly think it's the base. The Republican base likes younger, more energetic, more vocal people. And I don't know if you actually think you'll agree with me on this too. The Democratic base is more calm, more liking of people who they're told to respect and follow. And the Democratic base is less challenging towards people who've been in there.
Well, that's a real problem. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm not a Democrat. I mean, I'm green now, Carlos. I mean, that's my thing.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Well, listen, I think it was great. I'll pat myself. I'll pat you on the back. Reach behind my monitor there. Any final words? It's always so good to see you and have a real rollicking conversation. But anything we kind of missed? Anything that was on your mind that maybe we didn't get to?
No, I think definitely always love having being here with you. Whenever you want me back on, just let me know. I wanna discuss whenever it comes out what Kamala Harris is gonna do with the California governor race.
Oh,
you have
the
presidential race where Pete Buttigieg is now polling ahead of her now, which is another horrible, sad thing that these are the people we're left with. Yeah.
It's true what you just said. The thing about Mayo Pete, is I've seen a lot of people on social media, like they love him. Like he's got all this support. I know Kamala does from the K Hive, but that was always kind of, top down, right? It was AstroTurf. It wasn't, grassroots. But I feel like with Pete, he has a base, and I totally don't get that. I mean, he's a nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing. He's a corporate mayor from a little small town, and now
exactly
he came straight from Shake's secretary when the East Palestine happened, and now we're all like woohoo for him because he go on some Fox News and can speak in a few sentences. I'm
going to talk about Kamala tomorrow. We have Arlen. It's a Tuesday with Arlen. And he's a California-based contributor. So I want to talk. He likes Harris, which I'm I'm not going to say anything bad about Arlen. I love Arlen. I don't really understand that. He's always been a Harris supporter. I never quite understood it. I'm trying to understand it.
He's not conservative,
but she's not doing well. She's not doing well, even in her.
That's good.
And she shouldn't. She's not a great candidate. But the elites, they love her. They want her. They're desperate.
Because in the Democratic Party, you fail upwards. If you fail, you get promoted. It's the only job that I've ever seen work like that. Arlen's not conservative though, is he? From what I've heard, he's progressive. He's like Elizabeth Warren since her left progressive.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
he was a Bernie supporter. He was supported Bernie, but he's a loyal Dem. He's and I don't mean, but if you're watching Arlen, give us a call. I think Arlen centers his fear and hatred of Trump above everything else. So if you're against Trump, he's for you. If that makes sense.
But that's the part that's always weird to me because all the Democrats are against Trump unilaterally. So it shouldn't matter who it's like the people who said to Bernie back in 2020 that we just can't make sure that Trump wins, so we have to vote Biden. But then you talk to them and they'll say, I'll vote for a rubber band before I vote for Trump. So then it shouldn't matter. Then honestly, it shouldn't matter to you.
Well, I think the problem arises when or others are very critical of the Democrat, whether, the Democrat running against Trump. So whether it's Harris or Biden, you can't do that. If you criticize Harris, you're giving aid and comfort to Trump, and he's job one. We've got to defeat him. We don't have time to reform the Democrat Party. We have this existential threat in the Republican Party. And so many Democrats see it that way. Haven't you seen that? You must see that all the time.
Yeah, it's I can't focus on this because Trump is so bad. Even the people who, for no reason at all, will say, I know Kamala Harris, she would have been better than Trump on this. It's like, well, you're just saying that. Like, you're just saying, and then you tell them about her record, and it's like, well, we don't want to go down that route. So what are we doing?
Well, this is frustrating for me too. I hear what you're saying because I'll point out all the bad things like from Harris, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Harris, but whoever the Democrat is. And the response is they don't want to hear about it, or just wait till she gets in office, right? Or she had to say that, or, what have you. They had to say that. They can't criticize, the leadership. And why not? Why can't you criticize? Don't you want to win?
Exactly. I want to see a study case about why that doesn't happen on the Republican primary side. Because the crazy thing is, it's the primary. So everyone in the primary is against the Republicans. So why do you all care so much about who's going to actually stand up to the Republicans? They all are. I don't hear Republicans in their primaries saying like, well, I don't think Trump can really beat Hillary Clinton. I don't think Trump can really beat Joe Biden. They say, no, we like what you're telling us. We're going to support that.
Well, also, I would note, I think of the Democrats, and you said this, the vote blue no matter who is only used when it's a moderate against a real leftist or a progressive. Then you're like, no, you have to vote blue, even though they defeated, Bernie, or they defeated progressive, you have to vote blue. But when it's the other way around, when it's a leftist, then they're desperate. When it's a Jamal Bowman, then they're desperate. And Jamal Bowman wasn't even that far to the left, but he said a few not so nice things about Netanyahu, so we got to get rid of him.
Look at Ben Jealous.
You can criticize Democrats from the right if you're a Democrat. You just can't criticize them from the left.
Exactly. I was saying, look at Ben Jealous. Legit, when Ben Jealous won the primary, you had Democrats for Hogan come out.
Yeah. I liked Ben Jealous for a while, but he kind of went over to the dark side too, I'm sorry to say, in a lot of ways. You were never sold. You weren't sold.
I wasn't sold. I wasn't sold when we met him at the protests in DC. I was like, nah, I don't really like this anymore.
I don't think that was his finest hour, honestly. I don't think he really presented I think that was for the Poor People's Campaign. I didn't really get the sense he was all in for the impoverished. I never do with Democrats. I don't.
What's weird is that I have this weird feeling whenever you get someone with no political experience as far as holding lower level offices, running for like a governor or a president or like top level office. I feel like I don't really know how to judge you because you can say nice things now. What's going to happen when you actually get in office? You don't have a record to run on. And Ben Jealous had no record to run on.
Well, they all break our hearts. Like Kristen Mink, we thought she was really a progressive. She voted for the Maryland Israel Development Center.
Really?
Yeah, she did.
Wow.
Same with Elrich. Elrich runs as a Democratic Socialist, votes for the MIDC. Carlos, before I'm going to cut off in just a moment, but I'm going to put you on the spot now. Will you commit to voting, to supporting, support whatever, do whatever that means to you. Will you commit to supporting Andy Ellis for governor next year in Maryland against Wes Moore? Will you commit to supporting Butch Ware for governor in California next year?
If I could vote in California, definitely. And yeah, I'll say, yeah, I'll commit to voting for Andy, because I think, one, I'm not voting for a Democrat who's not actually fighting for anything, and it's Maryland too. My vote for him is not putting Wes Moore over the edge anyway, and Wes Moore is not doing anything progressive or leftist. So yeah, Andy has my vote.
Yeah, me too. I'm all in for both of them. I'm totally all in for both, and it's not like I agree with everything that those guys say, but they're not corrupt.
Like, one thing I would love to hear is Andy's strategy as far as the Green Party. Like what are they doing when it comes to more localized races? Because I just want to see the number of them grow locally, where even for nonpartisan races where they don't have to identify themselves with Green Party members. Just what are we doing?
All right. Well, you just open yourself up for this one, man. Why don't you run as a Green? You're a politician. You run for office. You run as a Green.
I ran for office once. I am not planning on doing that again. It's an evil. I like the campaigning part. Hate fundraising. I think it's an evil, disgusting thing that we do.
That's going to do it. Carlos Childs, always great to have him on. Friend of the Halitics. I will be back tomorrow. We'll have an Arlen Tuesday, and rest assured we'll have Carlos back real soon.
Of course.